Hello and welcome back to my channel. As mentioned in the last video, I'm going to be going over a practical path to becoming fluent in Spanish. And this is written from my perspective. I personally, my first language is English, and I learned Spanish later in life, specifically around 20 years of age, after having spoken English for my entire life. And so these are some things that are practical principles that helped me to become fluent in about 6 to 9 months. I always say 6 to 9 months because it took me about 6 months to be able to put the building blocks together to form a conversation without the need of a translator or without the need of any kind of app or things like that in order to be able to communicate. In other words, I could meet somebody who did not speak English and I could speak Spanish to them and have a fluent conversation. It may be a word or two that I didn't know, but through the context of my conversation, I was able to kind of figure that out or ask. And so that is what I mean by conversationally fluent. You'll hear me say that many times because, again, I will clarify that I'm not teaching Spanish on any kind of formal educational level. This is just simply how to become conversationally fluent. This is how to connect with people that you would meet each and every day. And so I don't pretend to have an academic work or any of that. This is just my personal experience. And if you will learn Spanish on a conversational level, you'll be able to connect with the communities. You'll be able to connect with people on a very basic level, and you can go from there. If you want to go into further education, if you want to take some formal classes and actually learn the grammatical structures and where to put accents and all of those things, then there are definitely some more advanced learning. So this is just a very basic learning on how to begin to learn the language and be able to speak it on an everyday basis. And so the first principle that I will talk about today is desire. There are two desires that I will talk about. One is the desire for you to learn the language, and second is the desire for you to be able to connect. If you're wanting to learn Spanish to connect to people, then your level of desire will help in that too. And I'll give some examples in just a moment. First of all, your personal desire, I'll put it this way. If you have a part-time desire to learn Spanish, it's going to take you twice as long to learn the language because you're only willing to invest half of your effort or half of your time into learning the language. So whatever your level of desire is, you can multiply that to figure out what kind of time frame it's going to take you. And so if you only have a little bit of desire or limited time or limited effort that you want to put into it, then it's going to take you a very long time, and your patience will probably will run out before you learn the language. But if you'll really invest yourself in it, and you will make it a daily goal, a weekly investment, a daily investment to learn the language, that I believe that as I became fluent in less than a year, I believe that you can too. And I believe that that's probably a safe goal that you kind of need to have in mind. That if I make my life surrounded by Spanish every single day, that I can get to the place where I can at least hold a conversation in less than a year. I believe that's a reasonable goal. You can do it much sooner than that. I had started having conversations. I was already starting to formulate words and things like that even early as 3 months. And I still am learning to this day. And so obviously there's you don't become an authority on the language within 6 months, but there definitely is room to grow. But your level of desire will help you. Your level also, the second part of desire, I was saying, was your motive to learn the language. So I'll put it this way. If you were going to be married to somebody, if you were only speaking English and you were going to be married to somebody who speaks only Spanish, obviously your love and need to communicate with that person is going to help you to kind of bridge that gap, hopefully sooner than later, because you're going to try to understand that person. You're going to work at it every day. And you have a genuine desire in learning that person's language because you desire to spend the rest of your life with that person, and you have to speak Spanish to them on a daily basis. That is showing that you have a love for somebody. And any time that you have a true desire to communicate with somebody else, you're going to learn and look for ways of how to communicate to that person. So we do that in all of our interpersonal relationships. We do that with coworkers. We do that with our friends. We do that with our family relationships. the more effective that we want to become in communicating with somebody, we have to understand how they communicate. And that's a basic principle. So I would apply that same principle to a community. If you have a specific Hispanic community that you are trying to reach, if it's for business or if it's to be a missionary, or if it's for any kind of work, or you just want to add another language to your repertoire, having a genuine desire to learn a culture's language or a community's language, that's going to play a factor as well. And so sometimes on the business level, you have people that just want the business. And so if you just want somebody's business, then you're probably going to be like me when I first started learning Spanish. I learned Spanish in order to communicate at work at McDonald's. And so I learned to ask for fries. I learned to say no pepino, no cebolla, no pickle, no onion on a burger. I learned how to do different things that would allow me to communicate, but I never really got to the point of being able to communicate on a personal level because everything I was learning was just business centered. And so your level of desire for those things will also determine how far you go in the language. Obviously, if it's just through work, then you're going to learn and be able to communicate on a work level. But if you're not going to establish relationships, if you don't intend to have friends that speak Spanish, if you don't intend to really be ingrained in the culture and the community, it's going to be difficult for you to learn. So that's what I mean by desire. And so the second thing would be learning style. Repetition is the key to any memory. I was a Bible quizzer as a teenager, and I had to learn. One year we did the book of Acts in the Bible, and it was 412 verses. And I could quote it wasn't every verse, obviously, but it was 412 verses of the book of Acts. And I could quote 412 verses of the book of Acts in less than 45 minutes. And not every single day, but most days I could quote it without error. And the reason I could do that was because of repetition. So even to this day, I'll share with you the first verse of the book of Acts is, "The former treatise have I made, O Theophilus, of all that Jesus began both to do and teach." Second verse is, "Until the day in which he was taken up, after that he through the Holy Ghost to give the commandments unto the apostles whom he had chosen, to whom also he showed himself alive after his passion by many infallible proofs, being seen of them 40 days, and speaking of the things pertaining to the kingdom of God." Now you might say, what does Scripture have to do with any of this? Well, the truth is, it's the way that I learned, the repetition of learning those Scriptures, and that's been since I was 16. So that was many years ago, over a decade ago, that I learned those verses. But they're still in my mind because every day I would start with the first verse of the book of Acts, the first chapter to be exact. And I learned the first chapter, and then I learned the second chapter, and then I quote the first and the second together. Then I learned the first, second, and third, and I would quote the first, second, and third chapter together. And so of all the knowledge I have of the book of Acts, even a decade later, the first chapter I can still quote, usually without error, because I quoted that every single day. Another example I'll give for repetition is hola. You probably are already thinking in your mind, ¿Cómo estás? It's the same thing in English. How are you? How are you? Many times we're not asking that because we're concerned about the way somebody actually is doing. Many times it's a conversational starter. And in Spanish, if you've been around the language at all, you've heard hola, ¿cómo estás? And so many of you already know how to say that. And the reason you know how to say that is because you've heard it repeated over and over again. You've probably used it. And because of the repetition of it, you have learned it. So those are two examples of things that are principles of repetition that I wanted to give into memory. And so when you commit something to memory, if you repeat it enough times, you will have it memorized. And so if you're going to learn the language, it's going to take you practicing saying the words that you're learning over and over and over again, preferably to people and preferably in a place where you have to communicate to them, so you're not just bored by yourself saying it to yourself over and over again. But the only way to effectively retain what you have learned is to continue to put it to use. If you don't use it, you lose it. I myself can greet people in about 7 different languages. I know parts of about 7 different languages. And I've made efforts in time past to learn parts of Russian, learn parts of Chinese, learn parts of Arabic, and I still know a little bit of all of that. But to be honest, I've lost some of it because I just don't have the opportunity to use it every day. And so that happened the other day. I was speaking to somebody who spoke Chinese, and I was able to communicate some basic phrases with them that I had learned but I knew a little bit more in times past, and it wasn't in my mind because I haven't put it to use. And so that's a principle. You have to continue to put the things to use in a language, otherwise you will lose it. Subconscious learning can help in many ways. Maybe audibly listening to music in Spanish, listening to books in Spanish, just kind of maybe while you're doing something else, you're focused on something else, having that kind of playing through your mind is a good thing. I used to go to sleep listening to the Bible in Spanish, and so that was something that I would help. If it was an unfamiliar passage, then I would test my knowledge because I would have to formulate the words and try to understand what they were talking about. And so that was something that kind of tested my knowledge. But if it was a familiar passage, then I was able to use the knowledge that I already knew that passage in English. I was able to kind of connect to it in Spanish. And so those couple of things are great ways. Anything that you can do, if you like entertainment, a television show, a movie, whatever it is, if you like it in English, many times you have an option to put Spanish subtitles on, and so you can watch a movie or TV show or whatever it is. You can watch it in English and you can read the subtitles in Spanish, and that will help you hear it you'll hear it in English, you'll read it in Spanish, and that'll help connect. Or you can find a movie that you like, maybe you've already watched, or a TV show, whatever it is. You can find something that you've already know in English, and you can watch it in Spanish and put English subtitles on. And then you'll also have your English and Spanish together. And that is a different way also to learn. And so you have some subconscious learning, you have some conscious learning. Obviously, through having a conversation with somebody, that is going to be your best friend. If you have somebody who is in your life that specifically, it helps if somebody speaks a little bit of English, but if they speak enough English to communicate to you in English, then they're probably going to communicate to you in English, and you're not going to be able to speak to them in Spanish. And that just is the way it goes, because a lot of people don't have the patience to speak to somebody who's learning a language. But if they don't speak English and you have to speak to them in Spanish, and they have to speak to you in Spanish, then that's going to be something that's going to help you, because you're going to be able to test your knowledge on a daily basis and be able to formulate conversations and build on those things. And you'll learn different words, learn a word every day, learn a sentence every day, learn something every day, and to help you grow and continue to put it in use so you can build it over time. And so the only way that you'll be sure to know that you have learned something is when you are tested. When you speak somebody with their language, in their language, and they understand you and you're able to have a conversation, congratulations, you passed the test. So you can give yourself a star. You can buy yourself an extra coffee that day, or an ice cream. You can reward yourself and say, you know what, hey, I was successful today. I learned this language. You need to have a lot of little successes in this process in order to enjoy the longer process of becoming fluent in a language. You need to be proud of your accomplishments. Be proud of when you are able to do those things, and let it continue to drive you forward. The last thing I was going to say about learning style is your application of it. Many times we're already accustomed to this. We learn something, especially if you're a kinetic learner, if you have to have your hands on something in order to be able to really learn it, then this is going to be key to you, but it's key to anybody. I don't know how many times in the last several years that I've had somebody come up to me and say, you know, Wesley, I took 2 years of Spanish in high school, or I took 2 years of Spanish in college. And they learned the numbers, they learned the grammatical structure, they learned everything about conversation. They learned a lot of things. They learned what a pencil was and all the stationary objects. But the thing that is lacking was that although they were in the classroom learning this on a day in and day out basis, they never went to a restaurant and ordered in Spanish, or if they did, they stopped doing it. They didn't continue to put it to use. They didn't continue to apply it. They didn't go to a Spanish-speaking market. They didn't have friends that spoke Spanish. And so all of the knowledge that they learned is just waiting to be applied. And when it's applied, then that is when we truly learn things. So we can go to study engineering, and we can learn physics, and we can learn all of those things. But until we really get out and we apply those things, then we really don't know it. And that is true for for not just engineering or languages. It's true for so many things that we study about it, but there's a balance between having a knowledge of something and having the experience of actually doing it. Those two things being paired really form your success, and it helps others show that you know what you are talking about, and it's what really certifies us a lot of times, is that we're able to do it, and we also are able to understand how it's done. And so those two things are very key. So I've gone over some different learning styles. I'm a little all over the place, and so I apologize. I hope that I'm being structured for you in these things. The final thing I would talk about is the classroom. The classroom, where are you going to learn? I talked about the styles. I talked a little bit about some different ways of how you can learn even through the styles. But specifically, you're going to have a place where you continually deposit information. You are continually learning. And so, again, communities where Spanish is predominantly spoken. And so that can be restaurants, that can be, there's little Spanish markets, and especially in our metropolitan areas across the United States. Usually there's a store where people who speak Spanish go to. They go to there to be a part. In Oklahoma, there's a couple of flea markets that are predominant. There's so many people that speak Spanish at the flea market. There are also Spanish-speaking flea markets. There are also grocery stores. They're called Morelos or Las Americas. There's some that are places where a lot of Spanish-speaking people go, and so the cashier is speaking Spanish. And sometimes they've made efforts to have somebody who's bilingual, so that you can speak. They'll speak English to you because you speak English, and that will happen. You know, if they look at you and they think you speak English, a lot of times they're not going to assume that you speak Spanish. I always like to surprise people by speaking to them in Spanish, and so. But those are some things that you can do. Also, if you are a believer, if you practice a faith or religion, you can find a local congregation or local assembly. If you enjoy going to church in English, if you can find a church of like faith in Spanish, and participate and listen, that will be something also that will help you, because you'll hear some of the same worship songs that you like in English, you'll hear in Spanish, and obviously listen to the minister word of God. A lot of times I use a bilingual Bible, and so that would help me to hear the reference in Spanish, be able to read it in English. And those were things that helped me and kind of sped me along in my learning of Spanish. And so all of those things, the communities, that's all free. Well, it may cost you whatever your meal costs, or you may buy something from a store, or you could just window shop. It doesn't really matter. But those are areas that are very low cost. They're relatively inexpensive, but they're communities that you can learn for free. It just takes effort and opening your mouth and being able to speak with people and put to practice what you've learned. And so also I've gone over friends who do not understand English. Again, that is going to be your best friend. And I'm going to say that over and over again, because if you're not connected with somebody that you can continually speak with, it's going to be very difficult to hold yourself accountable to learning. If you have somebody else that you have to communicate with, they're going to help hold you accountable, because you're going to have to continue to learn in order to progress into further conversations with the person. And so I mentioned Google Translate. That was a good thing. The other thing is challenge yourself. You have to find ways to test your knowledge and to challenge yourself to become fluent in Spanish. And so find multiple ways to test yourself, hold somebody accountable. If you'll reach out to me, I can try to help you with some different things on how to become fluent in Spanish. People have asked me about different apps. I personally never used an app. I didn't use Rosetta Stone or Duolingo. I didn't use any apps to become fluent in Spanish. Outside of a very short course that I actually failed this class in junior high, but I failed Spanish, and I failed it on the basis of just not doing my homework, and I wasn't the most disciplined kid, and I didn't do some of my homework, and I remember getting a bad grade in Spanish. I probably didn't pay attention. I missed some of my classes, and I had an instructor who I think got fired like the next year. He wasn't just a real good instructor. Not a lot of people really learn Spanish, and so not to really throw him under the bus. Of course, you don't know who he is, so I'm really not throwing him under the bus. But just to be honest, I didn't really learn a lot through that. I think the only thing I remember is sacapuntas is a pencil sharpener, and that was like the main thing. Obviously, I learned a few like how to count to 10 and things like that, but I really don't remember much from that class. But just the classroom for me was the people. The classroom for me was being involved, and so you can do anything like that. You can pay for different applications. You can read books. I use books when I've taught local Spanish classes. I've used books that were practical guides. They would maybe have a section on greeting, on how to greet, how to formulate a sentence, and all of those things can help. But in learning Spanish, I didn't use any of those resources. The only way that I learned how to speak Spanish was with the people and listening and applying myself. And so I'm happy to provide some resources for you, but I will tell you that if you truly have a desire to learn the language, you don't need any of those things. And so another way that can be a great way, if you like to go on vacation, try to find a place where they speak Spanish. And some of those places are very beautiful. I've been to the Dominican Republic and Mexico City. Both of those places have a lot of really cool things to look at and to be a part of. And so, but also they have people who speak Spanish, not a ton of people that speak English. So that can be a great thing for you. So turn a vacation into something that challenges your mind, and those things can help. So I hope that I haven't been too repetitive in this video, but I just wanted to take a few of these principles and share them with you. If this has been a benefit to you at all, then please like and share and subscribe. I am trying to see whether or not that this is something that is a benefit to you. So if it is a benefit to you, then please give me some feedback, give me some comments below, and let me know what you think, and if there's certain ways that you think I can improve in you learning and me sharing some different things, then please let me know, because I'm relatively new at doing this virtually, and but I've been thinking about putting together a small course on different ways of becoming Spanish. So if this has helped you at all, then please like, share, and subscribe. Please let me know and give me some feedback, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much.